Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel S2T. In today's show, Camera Tuesday, we're gonna talk about night photography. So let's dive right into it. Well, first, the reason I'm making this is there is a very good chance if you're watching this, you are in a lockdown. So what the hell you gonna do? Now, nighttime is a kind of different beast because the moment you become a photographer, you're just a hobbyist. Like let's say you start taking photography, and if you are exposed to night, you're like, okay, I want to do something in night. The first instinct you have is basically blast it with light as much as you want. Low light is the main problem. So you're like, okay, let's put a flash, let's put as big lamp as we can do, whatever you want to do. But again, problem is if you do that, you kill the essence of night at that point in time. So your photograph just looks weird basically, especially if you have flash. Like flash requires a very careful artisan use of it. You cannot just randomly take any flash and just use it, especially if it's on top of your camera. It will literally kill the scene. And that is why modern photography, they will always have flash somewhere there, somewhere here. Like there is a scene collaboration to that. You cannot just blast it everything with light, especially at night. It will really flat out destroy your photography. So things must change. You must think completely different if you want to preserve the essence of night. Basically, how does city look at night itself? Not try to okay, this building, the photograph tries to look how it's gonna look in daytime. Don't try that. So that's the one thing. You have to inherently change everything. And tripod is the most. The bigger, the better. There is no discussion about this. Like the bigger, heavier. Like given a context between a heavy aluminum tripod versus a lightweight carbon fiber one, aluminum one would be better, and steel one even better. So because time is of the essence here, we generally try to take photos as fast as possible. 1/30th of a second, 1/60th of a second, 1,000th of a second, or sometimes people want to go as high as 1/4000th of a second. So we want speed. However, that's not a luxury you can afford in nighttime. In nighttime it goes the other direction. You can have 1/10th of a second, you can have 1 second, you can have 30 seconds or 2 minutes or 15 minutes. So you understand the importance of tripod, and you have to disable image stabilization and autofocus and all that jazz. So it becomes a very different mindset. Now ISO, you have to let go of the fear of ISO is gonna ruin my photo. You have to let that fear go. You really have to explore the colors rather than the ISO. So and if your camera has if it's a Canon camera or Nikon camera, there's a very good chance you can just buy something like it, or there is a good chance you may already have it. So this is a remote release, and this really helps a lot, especially if you want to do something advanced. And again, it's not that you cannot do it without it, it's just that if you have this, it makes your life easier. So first thing I tried yesterday was the star trail. I have provided the photo down below in Instagram and all that jazz. Now you have to understand that stars are not rotating, we are. So Earth is the only thing rotating, but it's rotating constantly. So the longer you open your exposure, basically, let's say your exposure went from 1 second to 30 seconds. In 30 seconds, you start to notice that things are rotating. Now the Earth has an axis. So in top of that axis, there is a star known as Polaris. You can easily see that even in very very heavy polluted areas, you can even see that because it's kind of very bright, and you can easily spot it. Like it will have Big Dipper will be pointing at it. So that's a axis of rotation. So everything rotates around it, and the further you go from the axis, the more they travel. So if you want long trails, don't focus on the pole area, focus on the middle area. That place you will basically focus towards equator, or aka on top of your head. It will like literally give you very long travels. If you want long travel, I wanted the swirling effect, so I did this. Now this photograph you are seeing is a total exposure of around 1 hour. Now, can you open your shutter even with a remote shutter for 1 hour? Yes, but you should not do that. Why? Because you will have light creep at best case scenario. Because you have to understand, light pollution is always there. So they will slowly start to creep in. At 1 minute or 2 minutes, it will barely have any effect. But 10 minutes, it will literally start to flood from bottom, and it removes all, basically removes all the color. So you don't want to do one very long, unless you are in a dark site. There's a very good chance you are not in a dark site, especially in a light polluted city in lockdown. So generally it's a better idea to take short long exposures, aka 2 minute. Take multiple of them. For this scenario, I set this puppy up to 35 shots, so it's around 1 hour, and then I got the photos. Now combining all of them is super easy. All you have to do whatever light editing you want to do in your Lightroom, and then send it as a select all of them, send it as layers, and in Photoshop change the blend mode to lighting. That's it, done. You don't have to want to do anything more than that. Yes, there are certain applications, yes, you can fine tune everything and all that, but start with that. Start with simple things. It's like, okay, you take the photograph, you basically color correct it, whatever you want to do, send it to Photoshop, lightning mode. That would be like a very good starting point. And longer the exposure, the better you're gonna get output. Basically, longer, I don't mean like make that 2 minutes into 4 minutes. Now I am going for 2 minutes. Generally, I found it even in a low light area, 2 minutes is the maximum that I can open the shutter before it starts to light creep starts to happen. And the one common mistake that people have, generally don't focus on the composition. Now I learned this the hard way. It's like my first photograph, I was solely focused on stars rotating, so nothing in the background, so to say. That made the image very dead, like it just looks like points that are swirling. But if you have something in the basically background, it really starts to add to the feel. Oh, it's a sky, because our brain needs kind of context to compensate everything, and you are creating swirly lights. We don't think of stars as swirly things. So that is, I try to have some composition. Now again, I'm limited by my rooftop, so I cannot have like, awesome tree or a mountain top and all that jazz. There are some people who have done amazing things, but right now that's a luxury we cannot afford. So that's all you have to do. Like, try to focus on composition a little bit, like have some tall building or a water tower or mobile tower could also look awesome. So you try to get that, aim it wherever you want. Like if you want just a swirly motion, focus on the equator, you'll get very long travels. And take the photos as long as your camera battery can last, because this will eat through your battery very quickly. I think my Canon 800D will barely last around 2 hours maximum. Now, one thing you have to understand, especially if you are in a very light polluted city, everything will have a pink tint to it. That's light pollution. Can you do anything about it? Not right now. Like you have to buy light pollution filter suppressor, but those are very expensive. But you can try to do one thing to minimize it. Basically, go into white balance, go into manual white balance, and there is a good chance if you go too deep into it, you will get a graph. Push that graph into blue-green section. That will compensate for the pink. Now again, it removes one fake color with another fake color, but the blue-green is kind of a bit more digestible. So that's how you do, and make sure everything is disabled from auto exposure to don't change anything. That's as simple as that. So that's the first thing. It's super easy. Yeah, you have to have some movies, audiobooks to listen to, because this is kind of boring. It's completely opposite of bird photography. Bird photography is like everything is like fine-tuned and all that. This is completely opposite. You put it and you forget it. So that's up to you. But again, I'm really pleased with the results I got, and given the fact that it's my second try, I'm really happy with it. Now again, I'm reasonably sure and especially if you have good composition, you can do amazing masterpieces. So go ahead, try that. It's super easy. And even if you don't have the shutter release, you don't even have to. Just try to push it to 30 seconds, push up the ISO as much as you want, and like as long as it does not overexpose, and then you will have numbered shot. Basically, intervalometer is all generally built in, where you can have like in burst mode, single shot, burst mode, 5 second, 10 second, and there will be N. C, it will be denoted by C in Canon cameras, and you can push that number to 99 photos. So that's one way of doing it. Then we come to the another aspect, Milky Way photography. Now, generally, whenever you say night photography, people may think this part. Now, generally, it can only be done in few months. The prime months are generally from March to July. Why? Every month other than that, the centerpiece does not crosses the night sky. It does crosses us most of the time, but if it crosses during the daytime, sun is like, bro, you cannot shine. So that happens. So right now we are in a perfect lockdown with perfect timing, where March to July there is a very good chance you will be in lockdown. So that time you can photograph it, and you have to just make sure there is no moon. Now this is one thing you will learn as with experience, is that moon, if you see, let's say during 8 p.m. you are eating your food, it's like, okay, I'm gonna do photo, and you look up, you see moon, you have to think about it. Moon sets same way sun sets, moon also sets. So do not think, okay, I saw the moon, that means it's all over there. You can easily find the scenario right now, especially in April. The Milky Way center will crosses around 12 p.m. However, even in a moonlight scenario, you can have a scenario where moon sets in your area for 10 p.m. So after that, you will have complete night sky. So yeah, it is tedious and you have to stay awake for much longer, but there is a very good chance you are really going crazy. So do something that actually helps you relax. So you can do that. So do not be worried about, oh, there is a full moon today. See when it sets. There is a very good chance you will get a very narrow window, but a window nonetheless. And 15 of the days you won't have complete window. Now, wider the angle, the better your shot will be. Do not go on aperture. Like again, if you can have a wide angle lens with really wide apertures, awesome. But most likely you do not have that. Like, because let's say, given the choice between, let's say, 18mm f3.5 and 50mm f1.8, go with 18mm. Why? Because you will open the shutter for longer, and the longer you can open it, the more star trails will happen. Here we don't want star trail. You want Milky Way to show up, and you don't want it to look like a smudge. So how do you do that? Wider the aperture. The wider the aperture you will get, the pointier the stars will remain for longer. Basically 30 second you can push if you are at 28 millimeters. Now again, even at 30 seconds exposure, you're gonna get a scenario where stars are becoming into points, basically oblongs. Not too much an issue, and especially if you have 11 millimeters, then go crazy, then you can push it to as much as you want. So that's the first thing you have to do. Basically set everything in manual. No, like you can even utilize mobile apps that actually show you when the it's gonna rise up or where it is already located if you can't see with your naked eye. It's unlikely that you can see through your naked eye in light polluted area. But how the heck are you gonna photograph in light polluted area? You have to do what we call expose to the right. Basically you open the shutter, your time is fixed. Now you push the ISO as high as it can go. Now you make sure the final photograph do not rely on live views, because again, long exposure cannot be calculated on live view. You take the photo, once you have taken like 15-second exposure or 30-second exposure, try to push time as much as you can, then try to push ISO as much you can. So you reach a point where it's almost all the data your photograph has is in the highlights, but it's not clipping. Make sure it does not clip. So whenever in almost all camera, the clipping will be shown as either zebras or white and black light will be blinking there. Do not clip. As long as it's not clipping, you can recover the data. So that's the only way you can bypass light pollution. Now again, it does not give you a most amazing result. It will not compare to a natural dark side, but it's more than good enough. And you can truly see, hey, I photographed Milky Way out of my rooftop. So that's what we call exposed to the right. Not too much. It is just push ISO as high you can, shutter speed as slow as you can. Aperture, but again, there's a very good chance aperture is limited. You can't open your aperture manually, anything like that. And again, it will have the same issue of pink tint. Push the manual white balance to blue green to compensate for that. Again, it will remove one fake color with another. You can experiment if you want, but generally people do not like pink, so that's up to you. This is one another thing, and right now we are at the perfect zone. Then we come to the most fun part, especially if you have children. These are very amazing things to do. Basically put a camera tripod and open the shutter for 30 seconds. That's it. Like make the ISO as low as possible, like 100 ISO, and shutter speed is already locked. So what you're gonna do is give your children basically light and let them dance around. Or you can ask them, if you have multiple siblings, you're like, okay, one of them write H, another of them E, L, L, O. I've seen people do quite amazing things with this. So you can write things out. Again, try and experiment. There is no technical manual to this. This is as simple as it gets. You put the tripod, aim it, and focus it if you have to, or put it in manual focus and just focus in that generally. Generally, you do not want very wide aperture. So if people are moving around, they do not go in and out of focus. So you want a narrow aperture rather than wide one. And then just go crazy. Like, and if you're like, hey, I don't have touch, you have a mobile phone, use that also. So it's quite amazing. It's a very fun way to interact with the family, and you can create amazing things. Yeah, this is the best I could do, because I did that like 4 or 5 years ago, and that time I did not have DSLR. It was one of my friends' DSLR. So again, light printing is one of the things. And if you type light printing, there are people who have done amazing things, and it will really give you much more nuanced appreciation of this kind of thing. And again, you can try this with kids. This is really good. Like if they are bouncing around all the day, just give them a torch. At night, in rooftop, you're gonna have amazing output. So this is one of those things you can easily do with no advanced training and who are no manual, who are just exposure, manual, that's it. Now, this was my basically presentation made to help you go through the trying times that we are going to. I hope this helped you a lot. And in that scenario, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends, and please do, if you actually take any photographs, please share the links down below. I would like to watch that. And if you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment, and please leave a comment, because I try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.